talk about the broadband initiative that we started several years ago. And I'll go through, explain a part about the brief history of how we've got to where we are today, what we're doing with the proposal tonight, and then the actions that we need to move forward. So as you guys identified back in 2018 as one of the priorities for the county was the expansion of broadband so people could work remotely, attend school, receive virtual medical care, grow our businesses, and modernize our farms. So as part of this endeavor, we started through a timeline of working through different initiatives here at the county to move forward with our broadband. One of the major milestones on here was our efforts early on to identify address points. That has been the biggest pain point in our last 4 years of finding out what citizens do not have internet. And it's been very fruitful for us through the process. It allowed us to work with vendors that applied for grants that came down through the state through the Great Grant Program. We were able to provide data which allowed them to move quickly and apply for grants which we received. We received grants in this area when there were no other counties around us receiving those grants. Most of it was down east where it was wireless internet. So we already have great grants here providing fiber internet, and some of those actually successfully completed back in December of this year. Other milestones were we reached out when we realized that federal funding would be coming down. When we realized that back in June and July, we started reaching out to partners here because we wanted to make a full effort of trying to attack our entire county and not just one sub area. So we reached out in the late summer, early fall to Reidsville Area Foundation, the Rockingham County Schools, and RCC to discuss becoming a partner with us to make sure that we move forward with this endeavor. So those efforts led to us of releasing the RFP and receiving those results in late fall through the early part of December. What that result came back to us was the results from Charter Spectrum. They came back with an offer of 3,250 address points at a minimum, fiber internet to the home, so that's up to a gig. So that was one of the things that was intriguing through this is not just solving the problem for today, this is solving the problem for many years to come with fiber internet. They also honored an expedited process to try to get this done in 2 years. As part of that, they also had received a federal grant, and they're also going to honor that 2-year timeline on that federal grant as part of this. The federal grant had a 6-year requirement on it, but as part of this agreement, they're going to expedite the federal grant that they received. Also, they have low-income offerings, and they've partnered with federal government, and they have for the free and reduced lunch program is what most people call it, that they can go as low as $17.99. And some of the programs today, if they apply, they actually could receive it free until the grants end. What they're offering is a project plan of a little over $14 million total project. Part of that contribution is roughly $10.4 million will be from Spectrum, which is 72% of the project, and they're asking for a county or partner contribution of $3.985 million. So for that amount of money, that's roughly going to get us 3,250 address points that do not have broadband internet today. And that is at a minimum. And I'll show you why I say it's at a minimum. This is the map of the county, and one of the reasons we chose Spectrum. The red dots are the 3,250 address points that we discussed. If you will notice in those, around those red dots are yellow lines. They call those node boundaries. Any address point that does not have internet inside that will also be eligible as part of this. So that number most likely will go up. The reason we know these address points are those are address points we are confident they're eligible for funding, because there's regulations that we can't fund anything that someone has 25 meg or 25 meg down or 3 meg up. We can't fund it if they have over that. But we know some of those maps are incorrect. So inside those node boundaries, we're confident we're going to find additional address points. Some great examples is up above Eden. There's just a couple dots, but there's several square miles of area inside that node boundary. So the expectation is we will find additional address points. Another enticing thing about their plan is they honored the unknown. This is the first endeavor that Spectrum has reached with us. We know because of the unserved areas, the lack of maps, the lack of accurate maps, and the overstated speeds from other vendors. We know there's areas where they say they provide this, but it's not true. So they are agreeing, as we find additional address points along this, as long as they're in by the end of 2023, they will enter into a 2-year agreement for an extension of this to honor adding additional address points outside of the original scope of this. Today, part of this commitment is roughly $1.7 million from what we're asking for tonight that will be put in a fund to fund those as we find those. And I have a rate chart here that basically gives us what our predetermined rates are for houses that we find in these unknown areas. And it basically goes from the one house that may be miles off the road would be a negotiated rate all the way to, if it's greater than 20 houses per mile, they will do it for free as part of this. A lot of project first for this. This is exciting for Rockingham County. We're the first county that's going to provide funding to all the unknown areas in the county. There's a lot of counties that have tacked small areas, but we went after the entire county. We're the first to offer the local grants. Due to state budgets laws that passed in December, it allows us to do this. We're the first one to endeavor in that. And we're the first county to form partnerships and bring in just not the county, but partners from throughout the county to make this happen. And what we have committed today is Rockingham County government for $3.25 million, Reedsville Area Foundation for $1.5 million, Rockingham County Schools for $1 million, and to be determined later when their board meets for what the commitment will be from Rockingham Community College. At this point, I'd like to stop and just answer any questions, or if you have questions for Joe Prater from Spectrum, before we move to the steps we'll need to move forward tonight.
Mr. Chair, first of all, I'd like to just say that Derek doesn't brag on himself enough, but he's a champion. I mean, he started this thing in 2018. The state DIT looks to him to answer questions. Even the School of Government calls him often to answer questions. He started this project with Paul at the very beginning, and they've done a fantastic job. Joe can tell you we're the first in the state of North Carolina that's done such a spectacular effort in doing this. So Derek deserves a lot of credit for this.
Thank you, Lance. And yes, don't take this the wrong way, but I don't think you thanked him enough.
No, sir, you're exactly right.
For all that he's done to get us to this point, because I don't think it's any secret that if it wasn't for Derek's efforts and the data that he's collected over time, that we probably wouldn't be sitting here today talking about this at this point in time. So thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Any questions on what's been presented? No? Okay.
I'm sorry, I glazed over one, but I do want to make sure it's clear. This was a big one with negotiating with contract. There are residents that live further than 2,000 feet off the main line, and I do want to be clear that any resident that lives further than 2,000 feet off the main line, it will be some expense on the citizen. But anything less than that is covered in this plan.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
What is the main line? Is that the street, the public street?
It would be not necessarily the public street. It could be the power line that runs through the main area. There's some cases, but most cases it will be street.
Okay.
Are you saying they're all overhead lines, Joe?
There will be overhead lines and buried underground fiber. Yes. It depends on the area of the need.
My question just hit me considering the weather of the last couple of days.
Wherever power goes, whatever route they've taken, whether it's aerial or underground, we usually follow power.
You know there's a drawback with that.
I believe that would be their cost.
Yeah, but somebody's going to be out of broadband coverage while it's being repaired.
Yes. Okay, if any further questions? If not, then I believe we've got three separate items to deal with.
Yes, and I'll read through the motions, but again, I just want to make sure that we all realize that this is a huge deal for Rockingham County. We're going to try to have a press release or press conference next week with the schools, community college, the Regional Area Foundation, Spectrum, to get the word out, because I want the Mecklenburgs to hear it, the Wakes to hear how advanced Rockingham County, even though we're rural, we're still progressive. So I want to make sure that they understand how progressive we are. With that being said, you've got three motions for consideration, and I'll read those. If you all would consider a motion for a budget amendment to transfer $3,250,000 of ARPA funds to the general fund Sheriff's Department salary line item. This amendment also transfers $3,250,000 of currently appropriated local funding from the Sheriff's Department salary line item to non-departmental reserve line item. This will clearly show our intent of using ARPA dollars for public safety salaries and eligible use of ARPA funds under the revenue replacement category for the federal laws, which then allows us to transfer local dollars originally budgeted in the Sheriff's Department for salaries to unappropriated reserve for future use in line item.
Okay, so motion by Commissioner Richardson. And just for clarity, that's $3,250,000 as far as that figure, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, now second by Commissioner Powell. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Next motion to consider is a budget amendment to appropriate funding for the broadband contract of $5,770,000 funded by the county's appropriation of available local funding, a transfer from non-departmental reserve line item fund that was funded under item number 1 in the amount of $3,250,000, the Regional Area Foundation grant of $1.5 million, and the Rockingham County School commitment of $1 million.
Motion by Commissioner Hall. Second by Commissioner Powell. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye. Aye. Any opposed?
And then the final is consideration of a motion of a grant project ordinance amendment for the ARPA funds to approve the use and designation of $3,250,000 as revenue replacement to be used on general government services.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Powell.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye. Aye. Any opposed? I believe that takes care of everything.
One more item.
Okay.
We need a motion to approve the contract provided you for Spectrum.
Okay.
Motion, we approve the contract provided by Spectrum.
Motion by Commissioner Hall.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye. Aye. Any opposed? Derek, thank you for all your work. Thank you to Spectrum for partnering with us and allowing us to be the first county in North Carolina to accomplish this. Also, a big thank you to the organizations that have elected to partner with us. That's the Reidsville Area Foundation, Rockingham County Schools, and Rockingham Community College. It's truly a good thing for Rockingham County that we could all work together. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd also like to thank Joe with Spectrum for being here tonight. I know the weather's kind of rough, but appreciate you being here to answer any questions should they come up. Thank you guys for y'all's participation in this. Thank you, Derek.
All right.